I can't think of a show that has impacted me as much as Invader Zim has. Nothing 13-year-old me had seen until that point was as visually interesting and edgy as this mysterious and strange show was. I remember how I discovered Invader Zim one lazy summer night when my brothers were gone at camp. I was skimming through a bunch of television channels when I came across something completely out of place. It was a peculiar looking cartoon about a boy trying to prevent himself from becoming a sausage. The next night I tuned in again and found the same show. And from then on, it became part of my summer schedule to catch a new Invader Zim episode late every night. What I didn't know, however, is that these episodes weren't new at all. They were reruns of an already cancelled show. Eventually I grew tired of watching only a single episode a night, so I looked it up online and found all the episodes I could want immediately available. It was then I learned the tragic news that I had been blissfully unaware of. Invader Zim was done, and I only had a few episodes left to see before I had seen it all. I recall the feeling I had when I totally exhausted the remaining new content. It kind of felt like I was empty, in a way. The show had just begun to take a narrative direction, and suddenly there were no more episodes. It was unfulfilling, and left Invader Zim in my mind for quite a long time. I rewatched my favorite episodes for quite a while afterwards, and spent my time learning to draw the characters. I subconsciously completely adapted the Invader Zim art style into my own. During this time, my drawings became far more expressive, and contained more energy than I had ever been able to communicate in lead before. I did eventually drop this style, but even so, it was pretty instrumental to getting me engaged in drawing cartoons again. And it certainly helped me figure out my own style quite a bit. But my story with Invader Zim doesn't end there. During middle school, my friends and I got into Scratch. Scratch was an incredibly basic program that could be used to make animations and interactive games. We all had our own accounts and had our own animated shows and whatnot. It was a pretty good community, and I honestly do miss those days a bit. We even went to conventions and stuff. There's some pretty legitimately cool stuff on there, and I still go back from time to time just to check out our old stuff. Anyway, there was once a petition floating around the platform that begged for Invader Zim's return. The petition and others like it claimed that if it got shared and remixed enough, Nickelodeon would take notice of fan interest, and Invader Zim would be resurrected with new episodes and all. Obviously this logic makes no sense, but back then when we were all impressionable little kids, we took that stuff very seriously. Pushing for the return of everybody's favorite show was not a laughing matter. But Invader Zim's involvement in my life doesn't end there. Even after years of not watching the show and being done with Scratch, I had people contact me who wanted my input and work on an Invader Zim fan film. From what I remember, it was actually kind of a serious project, and when I was first contacted about it, there had already been a ton of work done on it. The storyboarding, music, character designs, script, and even plot, and even some fully animated scenes were already completed. I didn't take part on it though, as I felt Invader Zim was in the past. I really wasn't interested in the show anymore, as I had exhausted just about everything the show could possibly offer me. It possessed a kind of attitude that just didn't resonate with me anymore. I guess I had just moved on. So I guess I don't know what to say now that there's a new trailer out for a whole new movie. Like what? It's only been nearly 2 decades and now it's returning? Not just as a one-shot special or even just a few episodes, but as a whole movie? Just why? Don't get me wrong, I'm excited and happy about it just like everyone else is, but I'm kind of perplexed. Like, what was the point of holding off on it if it was going to receive such a grand return? I don't really know. To be honest, I haven't watched anything Nickelodeon related in about a century, so I'm not in the loop of their current financial or creative situation. It's not that I've outgrown cartoons or anything, it's just that I haven't watched television at all for years now. I don't know if that's weird. It's just that there's absolutely no reason to subjugate yourself to the restrictions and ads of TV. Streaming services are the way to go. Anyway, I've talked enough about myself. The real reason this video exists is because of the trailer, so I should talk about it now. I just wanted to establish that I am a fan of Invader Zim, and that this show means a lot to me. One of the reasons I always felt a little hesitant towards Nickelodeon bringing Invader Zim back was because I felt that it was something born out of a chance sort of moment. I didn't think it would be possible to remake the show again so many years later and have it feel like the same show. I think this trailer has effectively put those doubts to rest though. Not only does it look and move in the same manner as the original, but it actually looks so much better. I don't follow cartoons anymore, as I've said, but I don't recall ever seeing something Nickelodeon make look this visually pretty. I'm going to break down everything that I love about the visual presentation to design, animation, and color. There's a lot more to a movie, of course, but there's not much story presentation here in the trailer. I can really only go off of the visuals. One of the major aspects that drew me in when I was younger was the character designs and art style. The characters are extremely cartoony while still remaining a unique style and some sort of likability. The characters have enormous heads, small bodies, and noodle arms and legs, but it goes deeper than that. Even the line work with thick black lines and angular shapes is distinct to Invader Zim. The result of this is that the characters do not look friendly and inviting. In comparison to more kid-oriented shows, such as SpongeBob or really anything else, it immediately becomes apparent just how edgy and mean Zim and his friends appear. I think that's a big reason so many kids like the show. Kids are angsty and naturally drawn to something that looks like it's pushing the boundaries. So anyway, the character designs in the trailer are noticeably toned down from what they once were. The line work is far rounder than ever before, and there's far less harsh angles. Even the characters' color palettes seem to be warmer. The change is most obvious when comparing the old designs of Dib and Gaz. I am honestly not surprised at this change in the least. It's an effective compromise that retains the distinctive style of the original, while making them more modern. But that's all objective information. Personally, I love the new designs, as they still look aggressive, but more cute at the same time. This is a good example of how to reinvent an old and well-loved style, without losing what made it great in the first place. The second thing I'd like to discuss is the animation. I've seen the trailer a few times, and honestly, I can't see any major differences between the show and the movie. Of course, the movie looks far more fluid, but it's not an incredible increase given the time difference and the fact that this is a movie. I think a part of it is because Invader Zim always had fun character animation, so seeing more of the same with improvements isn't all that striking, but those improvements are worth discussing. There's tons of lovely character acting, nearly every movement contains some sort of attitude, and the comedic timing behind the action is pretty spot on. I guess I should mention it here, but the designs are also super animation friendly. Early in the video, I said Invader Zim's art style invaded my own, and eventually made my art more expressive than ever before. This is due to Invader Zim's characters being somewhat minimalist, being built from simple shapes, but still retaining a level of depth, such as with perspective and shading. A lot of cartoons don't differ from a set perspective, but Invader Zim has the camera set wherever it looks coolest. Because of this, the framing of any shot can be as interesting as it wants to be, because it's no longer held down by perspective restraints. See Fairly Odd Parents, for example. Lastly, and most importantly, the color palette has improved significantly. It's the most noticeable break from the original, and it does wonders for making each shot look memorable. I remember the show always boasted striking reds, purples, pinks, and oranges, and looking back at it now, they came across as colorful, but not pretty necessarily. I believe this is due to how segmented the colors were in the show, as opposed to how in the trailer the sunset covers everything in the shot, not just the sky. The backgrounds are also quite softer than what I'm used to. Take the clouds for example, they're soft and fluffy, unlike how rigid and angular they once were. Anyway, there's a real attention to color in this trailer, and it's refreshing to see something animated actually take color seriously. A lot of shows and other artistic mediums really overlook color as a whole. Most of the time it comes across as something tacked on because it's simply required or something. I have to say I was pleased with the other elements I mentioned earlier, but the color aesthetic is what really impressed me. I genuinely did not expect anything this good to come out of Nickelodeon. Honestly, talking about Invader Zim again is kind of strange. I haven't watched the show in any real capacity for years now, and I almost have no intention to. There's no reason for me. As much as I loved the show growing up, and as much as it impacted my abilities in middle school, it's just not something I feel the need to re-explore. As I alluded to before, it's the attitude, kind of humor, oppressive atmosphere, and almost pointlessness of its universe that just doesn't appeal to me anymore. It was cool and important then, but now I've just moved on to bigger and better things.